Welcome back to the Crypto Alpha Network. Multiple data points show Bitcoin could embark on a 90-day rally, potentially lasting until August before forming a local top. Some of these data points even indicate an all-time high could be achieved sooner. If this holds true, altcoins could be in for a great run. Let's dive in. Bitcoin all-time high and top on these dates? We predicted a dip when it became clear the China deal wasn't finalized, and we saw that play out, compounded by news about EU tariffs. President Donald Trump escalated trade tensions with China and the EU, linking tariffs to drug policy compliance. He warned that countries failing to align with U.S. drug policies would face steep tariffs. The bigger scare came yesterday when Trump called the EU nastier than China on trade. This news was a reality check, reminding markets that trade disputes are far from resolved, as we noted a few issues back. Trump stated, "We've just started with the EU," hinting at further tariffs, including a 10% baseline and 25% on EU cars and metals, as part of his Liberation Day strategy to address perceived trade inequities. As a result, the market dipped, liquidating many late longs. However, this could be a liquidation before the next leg up. Despite the noise, bullish sentiment is back, with major entities quietly accumulating Bitcoin. Michael Saylor's strategy MicroStrategy acquired 13,390 BTC for $1.34 billion, raising total holdings to 568,840 BTC, worth $39.41 billion at an average of $69,287 per coin. Metaplanet issued $15 million in 0% bonds to buy more Bitcoin. The blockchain group plans to raise 12.1 million euros via convertible bonds to purchase more Bitcoin. Digital asset funds saw inflows of $882 million last week, marking the fourth consecutive week of inflows, pushing year-to-date flows to $6.7 billion. However, the small pullback saw Bitcoin move toward the $101,000 level ahead of today's U.S. CPI inflation data release. Today's CPI print has come in bullish. Things look good overall, but let's see what might happen next and when Bitcoin could potentially top. Recession odds dropped 30% this month to 39% on Polymarket. Many fear a second consecutive quarter of negative GDP growth, with Q2 2025 data due July 30, 2025, could signal a technical recession in the U.S., as Q1 2025 already showed negative 0.3% growth. The National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER, confirms official recessions using broader indicators like employment and income, typically with a months-long delay. Now here's where things start getting interesting. Long story short, data from earlier in the year, like earnings, unemployment numbers, and GDP for that period, will be released around August. These could be bad, sending Bitcoin down, and there is data that aligns with that timeline. The US and China announced a 90-day pause on tariffs, aligning with early August as mentioned in a recent issue. This could create a Bitcoin rally between now and then. From a bullish perspective, if Bitcoin continues tracking the M2 chart, it could hit a new all-time high between May 26th and June 6th, reaching around $115,000, somewhere over an 11-day span. This is not an exact science, as the M2 chart cannot be perfectly overlaid on the Bitcoin chart, and many accounts on X tracking it will have slight variations of it. August also eerily aligns with the local top for the M2 global money supply so far, as you can see in the below chart. Eerily enough, yesterday's dip could have also been predicted based on it. Another data point is USDT dominance, or USDTD. The 3.7 to 3.8% level on USDTD has marked the last three local highs for BTC. A break below the 4.45% level could set the stage for a retest of 3.7 to 3.8%. Note that this doesn't specifically point to August, but the last time USDTD was at this level, it took 3 to 4 months for it to drop, with Bitcoin hitting $103,000, then $108,000, and $109,000. Overall, sentiment seems to be shifting towards a continued bull market, and the whales are getting greedy. Wallets holding 10 to 10,000 BTC have accumulated 83,105 BTC over the past 30 days. FYI, Raoul Pal's timeline also aligns with the August thesis. Stocks and traditional finance are looking bullish too, with the S&P 500 rising 3.2% and Nasdaq up 4.3%. $2.2 trillion was added to the U.S. stock market yesterday. What's interesting is that the Nasdaq has reclaimed its 15% drop. A bull market is typically defined as a 20% rise from a low, not just reclaiming a 15% drop. But the 200-day SMA and prior support provide technical strength. However, confirmation requires sustained gains and broader market participation. Today's CPI data could influence sentiment. Even Japanese stocks are on track for a 13th consecutive green day, their longest winning streak in 16 years. Lastly, let's touch on this. Coinbase is joining the S&P 500, giving traditional finance and retail indirect exposure to crypto, whether they like it or not. Coinbase is set to join the S&P 500 on May 19, 2025, becoming the first crypto company in the index. Investors buy Coinbase stock, ticker symbol $Coin, which holds about $1.3 billion in crypto, mostly Bitcoin, to gain crypto exposure without directly owning digital assets, riding the company's success instead. Conclusion: CPI beat expectations. Market sentiment is bullish. Multiple data points suggest a 90-day run before a Bitcoin top or local top in August. Bitcoin may hit a new all-time high if it continues tracking M2 around late May to early June. Coinbase's S&P 500 inclusion gives investors crypto exposure, like it or not. As always, this is speculative, and none of this is financial advice. Do your own research. Also, the path won't be linear. Dips and pumps will occur, whether up or down. Most data points to up for now. Imagine what could happen to altcoins if Bitcoin trends upward for the next few months, breaking all-time highs. There are many data points to consider, and most today point to a lead-up between now and early August before a potential local top. This could challenge the sell in May and go away thesis, which isn't entirely ruled out as we're only halfway through the month. Bad economic data prints mid-year could shock markets, but those expecting it could get ahead of the rest. See you all tomorrow.